I used to believe that love was something unbreakable, something sacred. For years, I held on to that belief with all the strength in my heart. My wife and I have been married for nearly 8 years. Years filled with shared meals, late-night talks, quiet laughter, and the warmth of simply knowing someone's beside you. We built a life together brick by brick, promising to hold each other through every storm. And I truly meant every word I ever gave her. In the beginning, she was my peace. The kind of peace that feels like coming home after a long, tiring day. I never imagined a world where she could be anything other than my safe place. I worked hard, not only for myself, but for us, so she would never feel alone, neglected, or unsupported. I believe that love was shown through consistency, patience, and loyalty, and I live by that belief. But sometimes loyalty becomes a quiet kind of blindness. Sometimes love makes us overlook the smallest cracks, cracks that eventually grow into something wide enough to swallow everything you once cherished. Over time, things began to shift in subtle ways. Small, almost invisible changes. She started spending more time outside. Her laughter felt distant, like it was echoing from someplace far away from me. The warmth that once lived between us slowly faded into something unfamiliar, something cold. And yet, I continue to try, because when you love someone, you keep hoping the warmth will return. I never imagined that the night which would change everything, the night that would break the illusion I held on to so tightly, was approaching quietly, without warning. A night that would show me that sometimes the person you trust the most can be a stranger standing right beside you. I had no idea how close I was to losing everything, including the version of myself that loved without question. At first, the changes were so small that I convinced myself they were nothing. A different shade of lipstick, a new perfume I had never smelled before, clothes that looked a little more carefully chosen than usual. She said she simply wanted to feel good about herself, and I smiled, telling her she looked beautiful, as I always had. But something about her eyes had changed. There was a distance in them, a quiet flicker of something she didn't say out loud. When she looked at me, it was as though her mind was somewhere else entirely, not distracted, detached. I brushed it off in the beginning. Everyone goes through phases. People get tired, overwhelmed, stressed. At least that's what I told myself. Because the alternative, the possibility that love was shifting into something else, was too frightening to even consider. Then came the late nights. Just a few extra hours at work. Going out with some friends. Don't wait up for me. Her word became rehearsed, clean, practiced, almost too smooth. She guarded her phone like it held her entire life inside it. If it buzzed while she was across the room, she would practically run to it. If I walked near it, her hand would hover protectively, as if I might accidentally touch her secrets. Her laughter changed too. She started smiling into her phone, smiling in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. Soft, excited, alive. That smile used to belong to me. One evening, I asked her casually who she was texting. The look she gave me was sharp, sharper than any knife could be. Her voice raised, defensive, full of irritation I hadn't earned. Can't I have any privacy? Why are you being so controlling? Controlling. That word hit me like a punch. I had never once denied her freedom. I had simply asked a question. But I didn't argue. I just nodded and stayed silent. Silence was the only thing that didn't turn into a fight. Days passed, weeks even, and every small change piled up in my mind like stones pressing against my chest. I could feel something slipping away, but I didn't know how to stop it, or if I even had the right to try. People say that when something is wrong, your heart knows before your mind understands. And my heart was already hurting. Still, I held on to hope, because when you love someone, you don't want to believe they could ever choose to hurt you. But the truth was coming quietly, steadily, and it was already too close to ignore. There comes a moment when silence becomes heavier than truth, when pretending not to see hurts more than the pain you're trying to avoid. I reached that moment one night, quietly, without drama, just a slow, unavoidable breath of realization. She said she was going to a late office dinner. I smiled and nodded, just like always. But this time, I didn't let the moment pass. I waited 10 minutes after she left. Then I picked up her tablet. The one she always forgot was synced to her phone. The screen lit up, and for a moment I hesitated. I wanted to close it. I wanted to keep believing in the version of her that loved me. But love without truth is only blindness. The messages were right there. Not hidden, not coded, just carelessly confident. I can't wait to see you. Tonight is ours. I miss your touch. And then his name. A name I had never seen before. A name she never mentioned. A name that sat in my chest like something burning. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. Instead, everything inside me went painfully, terrifyingly still. I read the messages for minutes, maybe hours. I don't remember. I saw photos, plans, excuses, lies layer on lies. All while I was at home cooking dinner, cleaning our space, loving her quietly and completely. She was giving her laughter, her softness, her best self to someone else. And the most painful part wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing she had already left me long before I discovered it. I didn't confront her right away. I didn't scream or break anything. I didn't ask her why. No, I closed the tablet gently, like closing the last page of a book I never wanted to finish. From that moment, I began to detach. I documented everything, messages, dates, screenshots. I reviewed our finances and secured my accounts. I spoke to a lawyer, quietly, calmly. I stopped asking where she was. I stopped waiting for her texts. I stopped trying to win back something that had already died. When she came home that night, she smelled different, perfume mixed with someone else's touch. She kissed me on the cheek like nothing had changed, like she hadn't been in another man's arms hours before. And I just smiled, not because I was okay, but because I finally understood. If she wanted to live a double life, she could. But from now on, I would not be the quiet, loyal shadow standing behind her. She had chosen her path, and I was beginning to choose mine. The truth was no longer something I feared. The truth became my calm, because once you see what's real, you stop holding on to what was never yours to keep. The night everything fell apart did not come with thunder or chaos. It came quietly, almost gently, like the world was holding its breath. She told me she was going out again. Another work dinner. Another excuse that didn't even try to hide what was anymore. But this time, I didn't just let her go. I nodded just like always, but my silence held something different now. I watched her dress carefully, choosing jewelry, fixing her hair, apply her favorite shade of lipstick. Not for me, not for us, but for him. She didn't look at me once while she got ready. Before leaving, she said softly, "Don't wait up." And I didn't. I grabbed my car keys and followed her from a distance, far enough to remain unseen, close enough to know where her lies lived. She met him at a restaurant on the other side of town. I watched them from inside my car, laughing, touching, leaning close, sharing the kind of intimacy she once shared only with me. And for a moment, my heart didn't break. It simply grew tired. Tired of fighting for a place in someone's life who had already evicted me. Hours later, they left together, not to separate cars, not to separate homes, but to him. They drove off, and I followed again. But before they could reach wherever they intended to go, something happened that not even I could have predicted. At an intersection, their car swerved suddenly. Whether it was speed, carelessness, or fate, I still don't know. But it spun, then crashed violently into a concrete barrier. Metal twisted, glass shattered, and screaming filled the night air. I stopped my car, heart pounding, but not from panic, from shock. Emergency lights soon flooded the street, sirens slicing through the silence. He crawled out first, shaken, bruised, but able to walk. He looked at her, then looked away. He didn't touch her. He didn't help her. He didn't stay. He ran. He ran like she meant nothing, like she was disposable, like everything she sacrificed for him was just a passing thrill. The paramedics rushed to her, calling out instructions, moving quickly. I stood there, unseen among the crowd, watching her cry in pain. Not just physical pain, but the pain of a truth she could no longer hide. When they asked for her emergency contact, she whispered my name, The name of the man she betrayed. I followed the ambulance in silence. The hospital corridors were cold, washed in harsh white light. I stood near her bed as she lay bruised, frightened, vulnerable in a way I had not seen her in years. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, they were not distant. They were full of fear. "Please don't leave," she whispered, voice trembling. I did not touch her. I did not comfort her. I stood there quietly, and all I said was, "I'm here," but not for the reason she hoped. I was there because everything she thought she could hide had finally collapsed. I was there because the truth had finally caught up to her. I was there because the life she chose had shown her its real face. The lover she left me for disappeared into the night. The life she threw away her marriage for shattered on the pavement. And the person she believed would always be there was no longer the same man. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady, rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor. The lights were dim, the air too cold, and the silence stretched out like a heavy blanket. She lay in the bed, her skin pale, her lips trembling, the bruises along her arms and collarbone turning dark shades of purple. She looked fragile, small in a way I had never seen her before. I sat in the chair beside her bed, not close enough for comfort, but close enough for presence. She watched me, eyes glossy with tears that hadn't yet fallen. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. I didn't reply. I simply looked at her, at the woman who once promised to choose me every day, the woman who broke that promise quietly, piece by piece, until nothing familiar remained. She swallowed, voice shaking. I didn't know who else to call. There it was, the truth behind the truth. It wasn't love that made her call me. It was convenience. I was the emergency contact, the dependable one, the stable one, the one she assumed would always be there, the one she believed would never stop loving her, no matter what she did. For a moment, I just let the silence shape itself between us. Then she finally asked the question she had been avoiding. "You know, don't you?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't harden it. I simply said, "Yes." She looked away, pressing her lips together, as though trying to hold herself together before she shattered. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I never meant to hurt you. I felt unseen. I felt lost. I made a mistake." "A mistake?" I interrupted softly. She froze. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, misplacing your keys, burning dinner. You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice you repeated, a choice you protected, a choice you prioritized over us." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I thought he cared about me," she said, her voice cracking. "I thought he loved me." I nodded slowly. "And where is he now?" Those words hit her harder than any anger could have. She broke. Her shoulders shook, sobs filling the room. She covered her face with her hands, ashamed, terrified, alone. I watched her cry, not with satisfaction and not with pity, but with acceptance. This was the cost of choices. After a long minute, she reached for my hand. "Please help me. I can't handle this alone. The medical bills, the treatment, you've always taken care of things. Please, I need you." I didn't move. I let her hand fall back to the sheets untouched. "You needed him," I said quietly. "Not me?" The silence that followed was deafening. "I stood by you for years," I continued, voice low, steady, painfully calm. "I gave you loyalty, love, trust. I thought we were a team. But when you needed excitement, attention, thrill, you chose him. So choose him now." She shook her head desperately. "He's not answering my calls. He blocked me. He left." "Yes," I said, "because he never wanted to stay." Her breathing turned uneven, her face twisted in heartbreak. She finally understood, not just the loss of him, but the loss of me. I stood slowly. "Get well," I said simply. "No, please," she cried, reaching out, voice breaking open. "Don't leave me. I can't fix this alone. Please, I'll do anything. Just don't go." I paused at the door, not out of hesitation, but closure. "You broke something in me," I said quietly, and some things don't get fixed. Her sobs echo behind me as I walked out, steady, silent, determined. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one begging to be chosen. I was the one walking away. When I left the hospital that night, the air outside felt different. Colder, clearer. It was as though the world had been holding its breath for me, and finally let it go. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the city lights bleeding into the darkness, realizing that something inside me had shifted forever. I was done being the one who loved more. The next morning, I contacted my lawyer, not in anger, not out of spite, but with a kind of calm that comes only after you've broken past the point of heartbreak. I had documented everything, the messages, the night she disappeared, the financial inconsistencies. The law may not understand betrayal to heart, but understands evidence. While she lay in a hospital room, recovering, I was rebuilding myself. I separated our bank accounts. I changed passwords she had long stopped caring about. I alerted my employer, preparing for the emotional fallout, and then I filed for divorce. The notification was delivered to her hospital room. She called me 23 times. I did not answer. Her text came next. Apologies, promises, desperation bleeding between every line. We can work through this. I made a mistake. Please just talk to me. But we had already talked. With actions, with choices, with silence. Eventually, her family reached out to me. They had heard fragments of the truth. They were disappointed in her. The man she had chosen instead of me had vanished completely, like smoke dispersing into the wind the moment things became real. She had given up everything for someone who cared for nothing. She returned home weeks later. Only it wasn't home anymore. I had moved out. The rooms were empty, the walls bare. The life we built dismantled quietly, piece by piece. She stood in the doorway, holding her hospital discharge papers, seeing the emptiness she created with her own hands. She cried again, but this time there was no audience to receive the tears. The echo of her sobs filled the rooms that once held laughter. I had already begun my healing. I started going to the gym again. I cooked meals for myself. I sat on the balcony with coffee in the morning, listening to the world wake up. I reconnected with friends I had distanced myself from while trying to hold together a love that was already crumbling. Life didn't become perfect, but it became mine. People believe revenge is loud, shouting, breaking, destroying. But the greatest revenge is quiet. It is living a life where the person who hurt you no longer has the power to touch your peace. She tried to return to her job, her routine, her identity, but she couldn't. People whispered. Friends disappeared. The man she threw everything away for treated her like a temporary amusement. And the one man who would have moved mountains for her had finally learned how to walk away. Healing did not arrive all at once. It came slowly, quiet, gentle, almost unnoticed at first, like a sunrise creeping over the horizon, touching everything with a new kind of light. I learned to breathe again, not the shallow, exhausted breaths I took while trying to hold a marriage together, but deep, steady breaths, the kind that reach your soul. There were days I woke up and still felt the echo of her presence. Memory is persistent like that. Love, once given, doesn't vanish just because it was betrayed. It lingers. It aches. But it also teaches. In the beginning, I asked myself what I lacked, why I wasn't enough, why she needed something or someone outside of us. But over time, I understood something simple and profound. Her betrayal did not define my worth. Her choices were not a reflection of my value, but of her emptiness. And no amount of love for me could have filled what she refused to face within herself. I don't hate her. Hate is still a form of attachment, and I am done holding on to things that hurt. I hope one day she learns to understand herself, to face the loneliness she kept trying to outrun, to heal the parts of her that led her to destroy something that once meant everything. As for me, I learned to choose myself. I wake up now without waiting for someone else's love to make me feel whole. I drink my morning coffee with quiet appreciation. I speak kindly to the man in the mirror, the man who stayed loyal, who tried, who loved deeply, and who walked away when loving any longer meant losing himself. If there is one lesson my heart now carries, It is this: not everyone you love is meant to stay. And sometimes the most powerful kind of love is the one you give back to yourself. Sometimes the greatest revenge is not anger, not punishment, not proving anything. The greatest revenge is living a life where the person who broke you no longer matters. And I am finally living that life.